Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. We will now be joined by Kenneth Kwamina Thompson. You know him popularly as Ken Thompson. He's fellow Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales and former Chief Executive Officer, Dales Finance. My guests who have been with us here already, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, Democracy and Development Fellow, CDD Ghana, Richard Ahiagba, Director of Communications of the NPP, Godfred A. Bokwin, Professor of Economics and Professor of Finance at the University of Ghana. And now, I'll share just a couple of your messages with you, and then we proceed. The K. Amwa says that the NDC should sustainably fix the looming power crisis, just like they have started tackling the CD issue. We, the voters, are watching closely. Hashtag Newsfile, hashtag Joy News. Pray for Ghana says, so in all the issues of Ghana's power crisis, we know John Mahama established ESLA to forestall this same challenge we are facing today. My question, however, is what exactly did ex-President Akufo-Addo do in that sector to help us in 8 years? Daniel W.Y. Asari, ECG's problem is structural, compounded by the politicians who directly or indirectly are benefiting from the situation. Unless we get a private participation, nothing will change. The last time we got private participation, you know what it took us to? Collins Little Tete says the government has the tools to avert a crisis, but history and structural challenges raise doubts. Success depends on moving beyond partisan fixes to a national energy policy, prioritizing renewable and grid modernization over expensive thermal plants. Our governments are, procurement oriented. That's where they get their gigs. That's where they build the war chest for the next election. And that's what they think, Abdullah Pegla Issa says that almost all panelists have been, sleeping under darkness. And if any of them decide to slide their own experience under the carpet and praise this failing administration, it's your problem. John Mahama experienced doomso when he visited WA. Okay, thank you. I think it's a guy I'm familiar with on social media. It's like overnight, the NPP seem to see everything wrong. All the things we saw wrong, we spoke about, they never saw. But, well, it's good. We need opposition to hold them accountable. Citizen Kwesi Hornsby says 40% transmission loss undermines revenue mobilization. There is a need for an audit. There's a need for an audit of the entire value chain from upstream to downstream. Government institutions must be made to pay their own electricity usage. Illegal connection is a serious threat and must be tackled. Thank you. Electricity, dear. People want it, provided they'll pay. That's all they want. So let's get to the city and how it's beginning to get the ratings globally as doing very well. When only how many years ago it took us to junk status. Let's hear a couple of the comments that have been made, including by the president himself, before we get to this.
I can say on authority that as a community of banks, we do not have any directive that bars over-the-counter withdrawal of USD or any foreign currency. You cannot just show up in a bank and withdraw foreign currency. There must be a legitimate justification or reason in support of that withdrawal. Perhaps it's something that we are not within the purview, and we do not want to even begin a discussion of such a matter.
Right. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the sound from the president is failing us. And I want to apologize to Harriet too. I understand that she wanted to say something finally before we move on to this topic. But here we are. So we have some slides. I want you to see the magic the city has been performing. Just to juggle your mind, remind you to pinch yourself and check whether this is a dream or is reality. Okay, so let me start again right from the studio and ask that question. Is this a blip? Is this sustainable?
Well, it's not a blip. And again, there are concerns about sustainability. There is a reason for what is happening. So it's not purely accidental. From the 2025 budget, you could see that the government's intention was to stabilize the economy. The economy was overheated. So there were three things they announced in the budget: a shock therapy, expenditure-based fiscal consolidation that shrinks expenditure considerably. And in nominal terms, you could see, compared to 2024, total expenditure for 2025 went down in nominal terms by more than 10 billion. See this. Then, from the monetary policy side, and I want to commend the Minister of Finance and the Governor of Bank of Ghana. There's coordination going on, right, towards a common goal and all of that. Then again, from the monetary policy side, you could see the governor in terms of the transparency, even to the extent of publishing minutes of individual MPC members. But of course...
Do me a small favor. Okay. And for our radio audience, Prof, help me. What do you see on the slide? I'm going to scroll this slide. It's very brief. Okay. Go through for us. What do we see?
What I see here is the mid rates, 12.4 Ghana cedis to $1. Yeah.
Scroll, please. Let's go on. Yeah.
And then Cedi had appreciated by 15%. That is what I see here. I think from year to date. Yes, and then there's also a graph that shows the trend in terms of the performance of the Cedi relative to the USD. So you can see some kind of a dip from 16.4 Ghana cedis to 14.4 Ghana cedis. Then it went up to 15.5, stabilized there to some point, and then it took a strengthening to 12.4 as currently we have it. That is what we see on the screen here. I think the emphasis is with respect to the USD.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a similar pattern they are showing here from 2020 to 2025 so far, where the Cedi was 2020, and then where we are now at 12.4 to $1. Yeah.
Move on to the next slide. Let me talk about it.
Yes. So here are some reasons why the Cedi is gaining strength, and the reasons here are that gold, cocoa export revenues have gone up.
That's correct.
Yeah. That is verifiable. That is correct. Can we move on to the next one? And then also there's also remittances, which is also playing a role. Can we move on to the next one?
We have had Standard & Poor's who have upgraded the Ghana Cedi, and they have spoken about successful debt restructuring, surge in gold export earnings, strong economic growth outlook, IMF-backed fiscal reforms, and then if we talk about the risk to the Cedi's improved credit ratings, we have fiscal slippages, rising public debt levels, inability to refinance maturing debt, and so on and so forth. So now back to the conversation that we began.
Yes. So there is a reason why the strengthening can be accommodated. And I think the concern also is about the sustainability on this part. So let me talk about why this is happening now. So from the fiscal side, you can see fiscal discipline, you can see expenditure-based fiscal consolidation. So once government is not spending, there isn't considerable injection of liquidity into the economy. And then you have the timing, a favorable timing, in the sense that whilst from the fiscal side we are not spending, we are shrinking the expenditure, which is very good in terms of stabilizing the economy, and I think I support that. You also see that from the monetary point of view, there's also tightening of monetary policy, because remember the MPC, they increased the policy rate by 100 basis points. Beyond that, there is also a doubling of effort in terms of sterilization, mopping up excess liquidity. So here there's in terms of injection from the expenditure side is constrained. Then there's also the mopping up of excess liquidity from Bank of Ghana point of view. Then you're also looking at the timing of inflows, FX, uptake in terms of gold, cocoa, and then also remittances. So if you look at all of these things, it looks like, okay, this is the time to move into the market and drag the rates down, right? Okay, so the question is, and you remember our economy is very shallow. If you inject $50 million into the economy, it could cause a change.
Yes.
Okay, so because of the expenditure-based fiscal consolidation, and so far government is not spending. If a government is operating around close to 60% in terms of expenditure, if you check across ministry, department, agencies in terms of expenditure going on, not much.
Government is operating around close to 60%.
Yeah.
I've heard you being quoted at saying that it's operating at 50%. That's not accurate.
50 to, close to 60%.
Okay.
Right, and that is verifiable. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Right, so you see the Minister of Energy saying that they need about $1.1 billion to purchase fuel. That would mean injection. Okay, certainly that would not sit well within the consolidation effort that we are doing and all of that. But look at it this way. So, and then because we are not spending, import is very low. So it means that overall, the economy's cash absorption capacity is restricted and demand is largely subdued. So when you have that situation, with improved FX flows, the central bank has upper hand to come into the market. And once they come, even it doesn't have to be that large. That is enough to cause the strengthening of the local currency. And all of that's what is happening. Now, what is the motive? My suspicion is that the central bank is looking at how to drive down inflation from the point of view of exchange rates. So inflation, what is it basically? Aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply. How do you solve that? You want to look at the demand point of view, eliminate demand-related inflationary pressures, and then you also want to look at the supply side, and that is where I come in. Now, if the consideration is that we can drive down inflation to the target, end-of-year target, and we look at it that we can't get that done from the supply end because the economy's supply capacity is restricted, severely constrained. If that is the approach, then I will not go with the strengthening of the currency the manner they are doing it. Because what you need in that instance is actually go for what we call supply-oriented policies. Supply-oriented policies will not coexist with what we are doing right now. All right, then the other thing you want to look at is that, okay, so we can drive down the inflation. So at a certain exchange rate level, it will help the inflation to come down in terms of the pass-through. Of course, we know that the effect is not contemporaneous. We will not go into that. But this is the issue. From November 2023, inflation on locally produced items is higher than imported inflation. So if you drag down the exchange rate, it only makes import cheaper. Okay, to the extent that we are promoting import-oriented economy, I would say go that part, but that's not what we want to do. That strategy does not create jobs. But of course, it will help us to bring inflation down from that point of view. But the real issue is, where should we stabilize the currency? The market has adjusted largely to 15 Ghana cedis to $1 and the rest of them. So if you drag it down, to what point? I believe that the central bank has at the back of their mind a certain exchange rate level that they want to hit and stabilize at that point. That hasn't been communicated to the market. It leaves the market guessing. Okay, and in that itself can cause uncertainty. Disruption in itself is not that good at this level. What the market is looking for is stability, and we need to build our reserves. And I agreed. I heard the first deputy governor of Bank of Ghana saying that they are not burning the reserves.
Yeah.
Yes, and I agree. You know why? Because the fraud level set under the IMF supported program, we had breached that. We had gone beyond that. Even before the election, we had gone beyond that. So there's some kind of margin that we can still intervene in the market without going below that threshold. But Samson, we've been in this country, and we know that the problem is anytime the city strengthens, it's about the sustainability. The ups and downs is not really good for the market. It's not good for the planning. So I would prefer that once we have favorable effects, the timing is right, we should rather build our reserves that allows predictability for long, and say that in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, we have enough reserves that allows the city to be what? To be stable. And that will be more helpful. But I also see that because we want to bring down inflation, we want exchange rate to come to a certain level which will allow inflation to come down. But that only makes import cheaper. That only makes imported inflation lower than locally produced. And if you look at the data, and I want to believe that going forward, Ghana Statistical Service will be giving us that granular data, because from November 2023, we saw inflation on locally produced rose higher than imported. What that means is that you are far better off in this country if you were importing and paying all the duties at the port rather than producing here. When you do it that way, you are only outsourcing the productive capacity of the economy to foreign or to other countries, and that would not create decent jobs.
I need a very quick thing from you here. A bit of the politics is always important, nonetheless. The minority leader, Afenyo Marking, says the dollar is weakening, not because the cedi is strong, but because investors are losing faith in the greenback itself. So this is not an NDC miracle. It is global monetary turbulence. This is currency recalibration on a planetary scale.
No, I do not subscribe. If I saw it, I didn't have to look at it twice. Clearly, I do not, it doesn't go that way. There's clear policy backing to what you see happening here, a coordination from fiscal side and then also from monetary side. But the reason I'm a bit cautious, and I think here caution is the way to go, I commend the Minister of Finance and Governor of Bank of Ghana in terms of their coordination and stabilizing the country. But something, this is the issue. If you see the 2025 budget, it is not a budget the president can run with the next 2-3 years. You cannot continue to subdue expenditure. You have to have your signature on projects and interventions in the market. So far, what they have done, you will see, is that they are launching policies. You launch a Jumera. That's not the same as achievement, because you launch this policy and like that. That is good. At the policy level, that is fine. You now have to back that with real cash flow, disbursement, and that is where you see the economy now responding. So when you put the economy in full swing, right, or every aspect of the economy is working optimally, and you see your currency still strengthening, then you can say that is sustainable. But to the extent that you constrain expenditure, and the president himself said that they've trimmed expenditure considerably, you can't continue to trim expenditure this way into 2027, 2028. You know why? Because if you look at your debt servicing obligations that picked up from there, and then also, this is you can correct me, the president can only do 4 years. In the next 2 years, there will be considerable pressure on the government to begin to do projects. That involves spending. Right. So, and you are talking about big push. You launch it. You are talking about $10 billion. That is injection. Then you also, so once import picks up, and the demands, and you calibrate all the variables into it, now you begin to see that there will be pressure on the currency.
All right.
And that is why it's important that we are a bit more conscious, because the timing, the inflows are all favorable, so that we build reserves. And then the other thing we need to talk about is that how do we consciously move away from this environmentally destructive growth model? And here, what am I talking about? So we've seen gold for reserves playing a role, gold export and the rest of them. To what extent can the central bank and the stakeholders assure us that the gold they are buying in terms of gold for reserves and the rest of them is from responsible miners? So that as we put considerable pressure on the government to deal with irresponsible mining and all of that, it doesn't affect this gold for reserves and the rest of them, because I'm concerned. Any policy, any intervention that causes considerable destruction to the environment in the name of getting more gold and the rest, you know it's not sustainable. Because at the end of the day, it will come back to bite.
I'll ask, begin by asking Ken Thompson whether Isaac Adongo is right when he says that we have not arrested the cedi. What is happening to the cedi now is that we are gradually massaging it to find its true level. Listening to Prof. Bokwin, he suggests to me that he says emphatic, this is not a blip, and so don't think it's a temporary something, but he's not too sure it will last for so long. But he agrees, he suggests that this is, deliberate. But I have a sense that the deliberateness appears to be something that, is artificial. So I would like Ken Thompson to speak to me about that. But briefly, I wanted you to respond to this. When Isaac Adongo says that you should not be taking dollars over the counter, is he saying something wrong? Is that not a good thing to pursue?
There has to be some kind of coordination and communication to the markets. That would unsettle the market. Remember that even if we say you want to operate from Ghana domestically, even for inputs, raw materials, a lot of things, we still import them. So to say that you can't, look, and something we've been
it's over the counter.
Yes.
He cannot say that. He didn't say that you can't keep your dollars in the bank and trade with your dollars. And as we understand, FX accounts are supposed to be a trade product, specifically to support external trade. And we understand that in every well-functioning economy everywhere in the world, this is what it is. In China, you cannot operate a retail forex account. In US, it is banned. In UK, it is banned. Singapore, the Nordics, every sane place, because the whole idea of a central bank is predicted on that. So, and this is Aku Kwapong, who is, summarizing. Yes. And people say, Adongo is saying the right thing. In the face of the laws we also have.
Yes,
but we seem to suggest that
we have been there before. We need to appreciate where we are, and then a certain gradual approach. Yep. Already, look, everybody prefers relative certainty. Already, with what is happening, there's this disruption. Look, this is second quarter. People have done their budget, and the rest of them. So it's only the central bank right now that knows where they want to push the cedi to. It's only the central bank. But remember that the exchange rate is not only a variable for central bank. People plan with it. Banks, people have taken positions and all of that. So you don't do anything that will cause disruptions, because how the market will react.
So it can be done long term, but not now.
Gradually.
Okay.
Gradually. I believe that it is possible that with proper policy coordination and management, the idea of people holding dollar also as a store of value and all of that can easily go down.
It's okay. So quickly, let me go to Ken Thompson, and I think I should start with Ken Thompson on that point. Do you agree with me that it is almost impossible that as a board member of the central bank, this would not have been a matter that came up and they had discussed it and they are convinced about it and he came out to speak about it, perhaps just to test the waters?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Prof, good morning, and good morning to the rest of the panel.
Yes, good morning.
I mean, personally, when I heard Dr. Dongo speaking about the city, I was thinking to myself, why would a board member get involved in something like that? It's a PR matter. Why are you getting involved? Because, it's, there are a lot of issues that are related to it. And really, I wouldn't have got involved in it at all as a board member. And what he did was almost rare. I haven't come across those kind of situations. That's why I stand on that matter. As regards the CD itself, I remember somebody famously said, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you.
Correct.
Somebody famously said that, and that statement hasn't changed. And I honestly don't. Really, it says will expose you. The fundamentals have not changed. The CD, after we're all getting used to it being at 16 or whatever it is now at 12. Nobody knows where it'll be tomorrow. But you see, it has serious consequences. And that's the bit that I don't know how the policy makers are going to deal with it. Because businesses plan based on, they need necessity to plan. Cost, revenue, profit, supplies. And we know how difficult is it to even manage your budget when you're planned. So any slight changes in the currency has huge effects. It has huge effects on your profitability and your capacity to operate. And so this CD issue and not knowing where it's going to be and the central bank not being able to tell us where it's going to be, it's a huge issue. I don't know whether somebody has thought about the effects on our exports because our exports have become expensive. I don't know whether somebody has thought about the effects on imports, because if it's cheaper to import, people are going to import. It's going to kill local business. And local businesses are struggling as it is. So for me, those are the key issues. Even when I think of the hospitality sector, suddenly hotel rooms in Ghana become expensive. Who are we benchmarking against? Will people want to come here for their holidays? And the fundament for me, so back to the same point, the fundamentals have not changed. Prof has explained how it's being managed, which is fair enough. But where is it going to be? How can we plan with it? How can investors use that to take decisions? And these have bigger implications for our economy than having a CD that is, suddenly dropped from 16 cities to 12 cities. And for me, it makes me, even as personally, it makes me extremely uncomfortable. Because I don't know what to do.
So do you feel we are massaging the CD in a way that is not sustainable, or you get a sense that this, in fact, is not smokes and mirror?
Okay, so what I'm saying is that the fundamentals of this economy has not changed. If the fundamentals have changed, you see a second buzz, you see it moving gently in the right direction. And as Prof has said, it's being supported with gold and all other things. That's one part of it. Number two is that I don't know where the number is going to be. I don't know whether the central bank is operating within a certain band. Is it operating between 12 and 13 or 12 and 15? I don't know whether this is sustained long term and medium term. I don't know whether what is going to be in July. I don't know what's going to be at December. So if I'm planning now, what figure do I use? Because if I get my numbers wrong, my business could collapse. What number do I use? I personally was getting comfortable with 16. I was hoping for 17, and then it will stop because, I got used to it. Then suddenly it goes to 12. So what do I do? If I'm buying now from China, do I use 12 or do I use 17? And if I buy now at 12 and I come back and I price at 12, and next month is at 17, I'm gone.
The point you are making is that the markets don't need lower FX rates. What they need is stability. And I hear I hear Senor Hosi suggesting that to me.
What we need is stability, predictability. The CD will always depreciate. Let's not be confused. is the rate at which it depreciates. Unless we solve the problems, the city will always depreciate. It's the rate at which it depreciates. That's the issue. And that's always been the issue. You know, and this, you know, what is happening now, honestly, it makes my stomach churn. I'm very honest, it makes my stomach churn. Because I'm thinking, am I going to wake up tomorrow and go, yes, and it's very difficult to make decisions.
People are getting excited, and your stomach is churning. People are getting excited because some price reduction is even beginning to reflect, as we are told by the trade union.
That's import-dependent economy.
Trade association, rather.
Yeah. People are getting excited because the optics look good. It's the optics. It was 16 and it became 12. It's optics. People, I mean, but how can you get excited about city going depreciating when nothing fundamentally has changed? Because you don't know where it's going to go tomorrow. So what makes me uncomfortable is that suddenly maybe I'll get used to buying something as 10 cedis, and tomorrow it's gone back to 20 cedis. You know, it messes me up. It really messes me up. So I would have rather, even if the central bank, the policymakers, were not able to share with us what their ranges where they're operating within, at least manage it gradually, keep it somewhere and let it stay. Just let it stay.
You don't trust the managers because they say that, quote, we are building confidence, not burning reserves. This is not smoke and mirrors. This is real. We intend to sustain it. That's Dr. Mumuni Zakaria.
Oh, I agree with them, but fundamental, nothing has changed. What we are enjoying is what's the best analogy? We're using a temporary situation to.
I don't understand you. If you say you agree with them, and in the same breath you say nothing has changed, that confuses me.
Well, I'm agreeing with them that they are trying to stabilize the currency. But in the same breath, I'm saying that I don't think that is sustainable. I don't think what is being done is sustainable. And I'm also saying that we are being put in a certain comfort zone, and the shock may make the situation really much worse. That's what I'm saying. You know,
so basically, what is happening to your mind and by your experience is artificial.
Well, Doc explained it. I mean, we're having increased gold revenue, increased remittances. We're not spending. Well, your currency will be, I mean, you're managing it. That's all. You see, the Bank of Ghana itself, it doesn't create dollars. The Bank of Ghana is your bank manager. All it does is manage what it has. If you want to increase the supply of dollars, go to the Ministry of Trade. The Bank of Ghana will only make the soup with the meat that it's got. That's all it can do. So to think that the Bank of Ghana has this magic wand to be able to influence the currency, it's not possible. It's Ministry of Trade.
Okay.
Yeah, Ministry of Agriculture. Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't produce any dollars.
Thank you. So
that's my concern. And Samson, just a quick one on. I have a little experience on energy. You know, you spend your time on coming up with talking to Ghanaians about having the will to do the things that we know we can do, which we all know, and not to build a system that benefits the few. We all know what the issues are. We know what the solutions are, and we go back. Every time we go back and forth, we say it's painful. What is painful? I started life buying fresh milk from Kingsway. When I got to university, I was eating yellow corn and copra. You can only have what you can afford. So let's find a way to get the will to do the things that we can do. We know we have to do.
All right.
And that's the only way to solve it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Richard.
Yeah.
You have already held a press conference over this matter. Yeah. Why should we not be excited? And when Prof asked me the question, he said, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You can correct me. The president is doing one term. Do you know why he was cautious?
Yeah.
Because you suspect the president may want to do 2/3. But you know that's not possible.
Yeah. Well, I expect Prof to also know.
You know that's not possible. He can't do
Prof to also know because the Constitution provides a certainty. So nobody should wonder.
Please, I'm here. Can I explain myself?
Everybody understands you. The point is that the Constitution is clear cut, so there's nothing in the middle.
So why have you been making a big meal of that?
But the Constitution on its own is clear, and everybody should have that comfort. But the president's conduct is giving doubt.
Which kind of conduct?
Which conduct is paramount in the removal of Chief Justice, right? And the packing of the court.
I've been trying to understand how you guys get these things.
But you have to be careful. Politics is very dynamic. This whole thing, I've told you, and I believe that's the case, that they cooked this whole removal thing in the back.
Is that what you did for sure?
Oh yes. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm saying that the Chief Justice, they've cooked it and it's happening. It's just unfolding. The law is just giving credence to it. And that's the only way they can.
Okay, let's get to the CD.
Because that we should have discussed that. You see, the CD matter and the performance. Yes, of course, it was 14. I think we left office by 14.5, so somewhere about that, and it's come down to 12. Something has happened. It's gone down, but the context in which it's happening is clear. Prof was talking about the fiscal response, the monetary response, and type of thing like that. But that is happening in the context of the IMF program, the PCPEG-backed IMF program. So it's happening. There's nothing government can do outside of that perimeter, right? So everything they are doing is already predetermined. They're just conforming to a structure that's built. And that you see the economy was on a certain path, okay, on a trajectory to recover before they took over. So that's clear in our minds that what is happening is there. And also, you look at where the Prof was able to mention, everybody has mentioned where this improvement is coming from, which is the increase in gold prices, which you cannot control. So in of itself, even though you have the gold, the implication for that to affect your forex is actually external, because the market determines the price in that area. Cocoa also, remittances, the goodwill of our people, maybe the interest of coming home, sending back, that you can't control necessarily. So the question then comes, what is the government doing by itself? What policy have they originated, which is organic to their coming to office, that is bringing about this? Where I would agree with Mr. Thompson, I guess, saying that the fundamentals in relation to what they are doing to say that we have changed ABCD is pretty much what they have inherited. So my fear there is we are celebrating this, but there's an effect to it, which Mr. Thompson mentioned also, to say that it's going to affect our export, right? It may help your gold export, but then in other aspects, it's going to affect your export, because when your currency is strong, your export is expensive. So to the extent that we want to create employment, which they talked about, and I'm happy people are beginning to realize that this whole 24-hour economy was a big lie. They can't do it. This is going to pour even water on it even more, because your export is going to be very expensive, and you can't drive it, and you need that to be able to create jobs. So right where we are now, the CD thing that is happening, I know Prof don't want to say it's a fluke or whatever, and I don't want to say that because perhaps it sounds, but I don't see what the government is doing to drive.
You don't want to say it's a fluke because you have already committed yourself by saying the credit should go to Dr. Bawumia. So you can't be here to say this is a fluke.
Oh no, you can say that to the extent that what is driving it now is part of the initiative that he's brought, which is led to the gold purchase program. You can say that. But then what the government is doing now to build on that is where you can say it's a fluke, because they inherited a good condition, they haven't improved it. So what the high that you're enjoying now, originating from before, if that fades out, then perhaps you can't continue to have that. And that goes to the sustainability.
But you know how the CD responds to, just like the dollar sometimes responds to behavior. Trump comes into power just by virtue of he being voted into power, and the dollar begins to change.
Absolutely, and that historical, there's a...
So when you say nothing really.
I think there's something happening from the fiscal side.
Right.
Well, but Prof,
Our reserves have been increasing even under the MPP, under the gold reserves. But if you look at the expenditure of 2024 and all of that, and you can see from the IMF supported program you quoted, by the end of 2024, practically we missed all the program target, with the exception of our reserves, where we exceeded. We're supposed to do primary surplus of 0.5%. We ended up with a deficit of 3.9%.
It's okay. So, Prof, let me.
So from the fiscal side, what they've done is that they've been able to bring the primary anchor from a negative of 3.9% to 1.5% primary surplus. That tells the level of strength in the expenditure. So there's a fiscal backing.
But Prof, so let me come. So even what Prof is saying.
That doesn't want to hear this.
Oh, no, I mean, why? Prof is having, but I just want to have my time. You see, even what Prof is saying, and he admitted here that government is operating about 60%.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? You understand? There's a problem to that. It's like you're starving yourself. Instead of working hard to make money and have a 3-square meal, you're starving yourself and working less. How does that help you long term? You understand? So government...
But as a Christian, sometimes you know the benefits in fasting.
Yeah, even that. You don't do it all year round.
We all agree that is the way to go 2024.
Yes.
There's consensus around that.
Thank you, Prof. In terms of the tightening...
But fine.
Let's allow Richard now.
Yeah. So the point is that you yourself make the point that very soon they have to loosen up. So this whole thing is comical. If you're only fasting and you're not working to save yourself, and tomorrow when you're loosening up to now eat, then you are going to deplete your gains that you have made. So
you want a part of the credit for something that is comical?
Sorry?
You want a part of the credit for something that is
about the part of the credit that we want, I've demonstrated, and that one is not in contention as to how gold has affected what we have. That's manifest what I want to see. But the point I want to make is that as a Ghanaian, for us to look at how this benefits us long term, okay, is how is it the government is going to sustain this?
That's
and
right.
I think that we should ensure that there is a production effort backing that. Prof made the point that it is more or less environmentally destructive growth potential that is driving this. So now you get to a point where we are producing, right? We are investing in our economy such that we are producing and our export is driving the currency flow. So if that's the case, then I don't know, Khalid, what you guys are going to do about the one district, one factory in terms of investing in that to drive productivity, to give us the opportunity to get more forex and then to create more job opportunities. That for me is the key. Okay. So when that is not done, I am just worried that this is just a 9-day wonder. And you know that, like the point you have made, that when there's a change of government, there's a certain response. You saw that when the MPP came in, right? You know, it happens, and even everywhere in America, you have made reference. So that happens. But then the point is that how do we ensure that this thing is sustained? And the government, Khalid and his government are quick to take some credit now because they know this is not going to last. So they are just scrambling around. They're just scrambling around.
Except when you're speaking from the part of the party, you and the party in parliament should try and sing from the same song sheet. Otherwise, there's a problem. Because when you say we can get a bit of credit, then Afenyo says, this is not even anything. It's because this has happened, which Prof says is completely wrong. Now, Khalid,
but let me disagree briefly.
Business people and people in you call it the economic front, like Senyor Hosi, agree with what Ken Thompson is talking about. He says, prices are sticky downwards. Until stability is attained, very little will tickle downwards. Imports may temporarily surge as import tax revenue may fall, and local production and exports may struggle with productivity. Now hear this. He says the sharp appreciation is concerning for economic stability.
Well, I mean,
just one quick second.
Very disingenuous.
Just 1 second.
Okay, hear him.
You know. So what the minority is talking about is nothing different from what Prof has said in terms of the external impact. right? So they're making the point to the fact that what the government is claiming, their own policy intervention cannot be seen. That what is happening is vastly external, is externally driven. The increase in gold prices is external, right? Cocoa price is external, the remittances are external. So what they have done is what they're referring to, that all of these things, it's not government-led intervention.
Escalate.
Yeah, something. It's disingenuous to say that it's a sharp performance. Because if you look at the graph, as you show here, it's not sharp. It took a gradual approach and peaked at where we are now. I think Prof mentioned a very fundamental point, which is supply-oriented policies.
So if we had left the ship to sail with Baumia, we would have seen this still. Is that the argument?
How would it have?
You said it was gradual.
Gradual from where we started from in terms of heralding what we had to do with the indication of a budget, which was our blueprint to internal control. Yeah. But you saw the figures. We are not lying to them. The inflation figures. We had a very overheated economy. Yeah. Where domestic debt exchange program. We went on a borrowing spree on the bond market. Came back celebrating with Kenke parties among other issues. We are not even singing a jingle of Sepr to celebrate this. No. But what I am invariably saying,
that's not true. That's not
Richard,
true.
Can I
go ahead? But that's not true.
Right. So when we talk about the supply-oriented policies, I agree with Prof. But that's very long term. That's very long term. Right, under what we're doing now, and I'll take it pick by pick. You talk about cocoa, you talk about gold, among other issues, and an IMF program. I keep saying this, and I overlabor this point, that the IMF program we inherited is a very unique IMF program. Why do I say this? You went to an IMF with your tails in between your legs, with downgrading ratings agencies, downgrading us to almost junk status, right, in the run-up to an election, in the last quarter of an election. With all of this happening, what did we see in the international front as far as the market is concerned? You missed tranches of it. And mind you, we have a very temperamental economy and market that any practitioner must admit, and even politician. So the least mistake you make, it can go negative or go very south. So what happened is that under usual circumstances, there are two things to benefit cardinal when you're under an IMF program. One is that when the Forex hits the national kitty, is sent to give some respite to the city, and you have investors that were holding back Forex will now come back onto the market to see how they could invest. We're missing tranches under the program. What happened is that investors no longer trust the market because we missed it. That trend was lost at the time.
We missed what?
Oh, IMF tranches. I mean, I'm talking about the payments.
We never
missed anything.
No. We have not missed one. Not at all.
We never missed anything.
Not at all.
We've had two.
Not at all.
To the third, right?
Yes.
No, I'm not saying
all
the conditions we were to meet before the money was released.
Okay, that's different from
That's what I'm talking about.
But the disbursement
don't miss it.
But you said tranche. Okay. That's what you said.
No, when I say tranches of payments.
Yes.
So let me qualify it.
No, but that's what you said. But we haven't missed it.
Richard, the terminology would have been servicing. I never use servicing. So please.
You said tranche. But you used the right one.
And please, as economists, help us. We want to go with it.
That's why you said tranche.
I'm really trying to avoid the terminologies.
Okay. Prof did it and we understood
all of them. So I
Prof did it and we understood fine. So
I think Prof uses all of them. So I try to hold back to be as practical as possible. Combining both the teacher and politician in me. So you have all of this happening, which led us to a very overheated economy. And what we only are enjoying from this inherited IMF program is a watchman status that the IMF is playing. Right, by putting the watchman at the central bank, among other issues, to really ensure that the policies are being met. Apart from that, we lost, the practical element it would have reflected. But to say that the government did nothing, it's very disingenuous.
But just say what the government has done.
No, you look at gold.
What have they done?
Among other issues coming.
Say it.
Right. People fail to realize that most of the purchases are not going to bullion, but to Forex. So if it's going to Forex, how can it not invariably inform this?
When did the gold board start become operational?
It is not about, market is indication. And when we talk about optics and sentiments, that is market. So they can read it from, that's where I disagreed with Thompson when he was talking about they don't know where this would be. They have to plan, they are business people. So to look at events that has happened in the past and where we are, where do you think the city would be and leave room for what it is? I'm not even celebrating this. We will celebrate after 4 years. Because this is just, first quarter we are looking at. But you look at our budget, and Prof, you would know that the budget we presented in
2025 is just a photographic picture of what we are doing in 2025. That would change. And you agree with me that the instrument we've activated as a government to manage this economy, we are left with no other choice than to activate this instrument in the budget, which is tightening.
I agree.
And internal control. And you see the president exuding that even in practice. So signaling, which Nana Akufo-Addo aptly said that Sika and PDD, right? This was where he was trying to talk about market sentiment, optics, among other issues happening. So you look at all of this, even our nascent banking sector is trying its best as far as forex flow is concerned. If anyone is worried as of now, you are holding dollars as an illegal business measure. That is why you'll be worried as a business person. Why are you worried when
No, but how right? is that? How is that a problem? If it's somebody's asset,
it is
not holding it, it's illegal.
Why should what I'm saying, so if you're trading in that and hurting the economy and some gains are being made and you're beginning to say, okay, well, I cannot understand this. Yes, but again, mind you, what are we? We are in month 5, right, of a whole calendar financial year. Month 5, and what it means is that a budget that was read in March, appropriation goes in among other issues. And that's where, again, I tend to have a slight disagreement to say that the economy is operating at 60%. It may not be very accurate because there's paper spending ahead of real actual spending that ought to. So are we saying we are mopping all of that in to really determine what is happening? Now you look at big ticket items on it, which talks about the big push among other issues. We haven't gotten there yet. So this is just a first. Sorry?
But there's no injection back in this policy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that injection, but per expectation, right? And even financial management, no injection can be made. It's unrealistic.
Yes.
Yeah, it is very unrealistic.
That's what I'm saying, that we will scale up.
We'll scale up.
And
that's
where the problem is.
Yes.
The scaling up, that's where the problem is.
But it is not a deliberate attempt for injections not to be made. It is the natural movement and course of the government and the rollout of the policy.
And I've commended
government. You've commended that. And our budget for 2020.
You don't have to confess. You've made a point and it's correct.
Right. So it is a stability budget, if you look at it. And I commend the finance minister. So the Mahama Atu Forcing economy is looking at this and is looking at stability in the first quarter, moving all the way probably to the last quarter to see where we can now have real injection of real capital. But mind you, if you look at infrastructure in and of itself, which is a big push, and look at the amount that is voting, I think $10 billion. Now, $10 billion. Yeah. That has a trickle-down effect if it's on full-blown scale of going out to artisans, among other issues. So it's a whole gamut of people to look after. 24-hour economy. I don't know why people are so scared. Richard and Co are very scared of the 24-hour economy.
No, it's not about being scared. It's about being realistic.
Not being realistic, but what do you expect in the first quarter of a government that have promised a big ticket item?
It simply doesn't sound realistic to me.
How does it not sound realistic to you? I explain.
They said they will launch the policy.
They will launch the policy, and we have a whole. And the commitment of the president is evident. He's appointed a whole advice.
It's not about a policy. It's about what this economy can support. Realistically.
Look, I'm coming. I don't know your thinking of it, but I'm saying for the existence of within the confines of a 24-hour economy, we have a demand side and we have a supply side. Okay, and we have an incentive side of it. The government can incentivize the system to create a 24-hour economy. That is the incentive side of it. The demand side of it is the economy would demand that. I always give this classic example. Let's say Airport Shell, for example. If I'm in town any time of the day, be it midnight, whatsoever, and I need to get fuel, that's where I drive to because it's running 24/7.
Yeah, it doesn't sleep.
So it's already existing within the economy. So what it needs to have now is an incentive to allow others to emulate or to join the fray of operating within the 24-hour economy. So let's say, okay,
that place,
I'm coming.
That place, there's a demand for it.
No, but I'm giving you the indicators. I mentioned demand, supply, and incentive. Yeah. So can I come in? So if we say, okay, well, with the justification for the demand for it, that's not the only place that will have demand for it nationwide. There will be other places, and the factors are there to absorb that. We say, okay, we recalibrate the pump at the downstream sector of these stations to say, okay, past midnight, right? This is the amount of taxes that you earn on it, or this is the incentive on tax base on it. Then others see that as an incentive to join the fray, right? it does not going to be a 24-hour economy. That's just one minute aspect I'm showing. No, people view the 24-hour economy as brick and mortar.
Yes,
it's not brick and mortar.
Okay.
It encompasses a lot.
I need you to wrap up for me.
Okay, so yeah, I'm wrapping up on these issues. But you see, having inherited an overheated economy, as I indicated, for the first time in our long history, financial history, nobody, Prof, would agree with me, cracked a sweat to access cocoa syndicated loan. When we went to a syndicated market, we were rushed for. But what happened before we took the economy? We couldn't syndicate, right? And that has implications. So if you have a government coming in and giving all the real commitments as far as fiscal tightening is concerned, financial discipline is concerned, prudence is concerned, among other issues. So we talk about the economy as though we're talking about a 4-year or 8-year-old government.
Anyway.
So we need to contextualize, right? Budget read in March, appropriations being made. At what time do we have disbursement?
You see, for your ordinary Ghanaian, all this CD talk, all they want to see is how it reflects in prices.
And that's what I'm saying. You see, when you let's not even create the impression as though we are out on the street celebrating that the CD has done X, Y, Z. I said our celebration is after 4 years. So this is just part of the process of a bigger celebration to come when we leave office or when President Mahama ends his tenure in JM2. Right. So that is what we should be looking at. But in any case, for me, I cringe when we tend to have currency conversations such as this. Should we even be having these conversations?
You are the ones celebrating it.
But you held the press conference.
You are the one celebrating it.
How many did you hold a Kenke party at the
Well, maybe you have done it. You didn't bring the cameras.
It wasn't just Kenke, there was Wate. Right. There was also Wate on the team.
Dr. Redfish? Sorry, let me come to Dr.
No, I wanted to ask a question.
No, I'm sorry. Richard, we need to go to the next topic.
Right. But I have a question.
And I know you want to get to the next topic. So please, let's go.
It's okay.
I want this topic from where you sit and interact with the last time you spoke about your watch area.
No, but you see something. If we didn't connect to the domestic debt exchange program, we would not even be here.
What does this mean? And of course you're flying. Yeah. What does this mean to you?
Well, so I mean, as when I listen to Mr. Thompson, listening to Prof, yes, on this subject, this is where I wish I also took my economics a lot more seriously than I did. But I get the sense that at the end of the day, you also want to ensure that because the market and the market players need certainty, and you don't want to unsettle the players too much, and it looks like, in this appreciation, depreciation of currency, there would always be quote unquote winners and losers in the market. The place you want to get to is that level point of stability where it allows businesses and other players in the market to be able to plan. And that's where I understand Prof saying we would like to see at some point what the BOG is thinking and where it needs to get to. And then what happens when government also starts operationalizing its fiscal policy? All of that would have some implications. I understand the politics of it. Let's be fair. If
the blueprint as well.
But let's be fair in the politics of the exchange rate. If it was bad, we would, by now, especially
you too.
Exactly. By now, especially my mother's party's people will be on the neck of government, and saying. So I can also appreciate and understand why some of them are happy. I've seen expressions like Atto is forcing and all of that, So it's
economics.
Exactly. So I can understand the politics of it. But when all is said and done, it looks like.
And some people were taking Prof on for some of his commentary because they were not too comfortable. They said, but what is Prof trying to do?
So I got some correct and all of that. I mean, I prefer stability and predictability.
Right.
So, yes, it's good that the rate has come down a bit, but I think we should, so that people can plan. And I want something for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Right.
When I sit and I'm looking at Ghana, I'm not looking at just 4 years.
We agree, but can we do all of this cognizant of the fact that we are in a temperamental economy?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, that you see, we have created a favorable condition which can allow us to drag the rate down.
That's right.
But should we use it this way?
Yes,
or rather, we should stabilize and plan for long.
He had barely done 3 minutes before you guys
Yes, but
came.
yes, essentially.
Well, you guys did like 10 minutes plus.
Right, but again, going forward, I think that's the key here, right? That what would the policy choices of the government start to look like as we move into second, third quarter?
Yeah.
Because again, from what I'm understanding, the key here would be stability and ensuring that whatever disruptions happen or do not happen, you want to balance it out so you don't have extreme winners on one side and extreme losers on the other.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. But do you realistically expect that prices will begin to fall and, you know, how much I pay for my fuel, everything else will be affected, Doc?
I haven't seen that yet. And in fact, my sister and I were in Ekropon having this conversation with my mom. So one time prices went up. She went to the market and the market woman says to her, "Oh, Mama, a dollar na kosre." And my mom retorts and says, "Describe the color of the dollar," right? And her thing is, prices just stay where they are. They may not go up anymore, but we tend not to see prices coming down, even sometimes in favorable, under some favorable conditions.
When it goes up, the next minute, they are increasing their wares.
We see that prices are upwardly flexible and downwardly sticky. Pushing price down, you may not even get it in proportionate. Like you say, the Cedi adapted by 15%. So when you go to the market, you should see a reduction of 15%. So it's even not.
Our economy should get there. Our economy should get there. Edu Tete says that Prof. Bokping sets a high bar, depth of knowledge with humility. We need more of such informed voices in our media space. Hoping shows like Newsfile give more room to experts over political spin. Excellence Reign says the stabilization of the Cedi was a major cry of Ghanaians, and the NDC heard their cry and promised to stabilize it. And I'm glad things are working out fantastically. The appreciation of the Cedi has put a lot of smile on the faces of Ghanaians. Keep the good work up. Kia Mofa again says, when the NPP printed money, we were fine. Whenever the exchange rate decreases during the NPP's tenure, no one mentions the change in fundamentals. Why is the NPP so concerned about the recent exchange issues they should not address? Dave, the PR, says, I'm very disappointed in Ken Thompson. Oh, why? The former CEO of Dalex Finance is on Newsfile saying the Cedi should be Ghana Cedi 17 and the appreciation makes his stomach churn. Really? You are listening to this show right now? Face of Africa. It is not quite true that the fundamentals of the economy have not changed. Credibility is one of the strongest fundamentals for every economy. No economy runs better without it. At least credibility has changed. That can sustain Ghana's gains. KD says, I think the NDC has used the experience of the NPP to school itself. The NPP were loud but very messy in its management of the economy. The NDC seems to be quiet but is making noticeable impact. But I hope to see its effect on the average Ghanaian. One of your favorite ladies, Noah Falong, says that Professor Bokping has taken everyone back to school on Newsfile. Naysayers and Jeremiahs shattered. How can you tell us the Cedi appreciation is giving you apprehension and has no grounding when the increase in gold and cocoa exports, uptick in remittances and fiscal consolidation of government expenditure are all verifiable? I didn't say one of your favorite ladies. I
know her.
I meant Dr. Osai Kwapo.
Oh, okay. I also know her very well.
So if you get the next take, Khalid will insist on another take.
No, that's an honest
and it's almost 11:40. You don't want to discuss Amijan V.
No, I mean, you're asking me a question.
Petitions.
I want to ask you a question.
We take a break. We'll be right back.
Send me a WhatsApp.